Fruits. Fruits are one of the few foods that almost nobody actually needs to overthink. They are nutrient-dense, full of fiber, full of water, full of vitamins, and full of antioxidants. And the fiber in fruit is the reason that the sugar inside it does not behave the way people think it does. When you eat a whole apple, the fiber slows down how fast that sugar enters your bloodstream, which means your blood glucose goes up gently instead of spiking, your liver handles it without drama, your insulin response stays reasonable, and you feel full for a decent amount of time afterwards. That is the whole point of eating fruit in its original form. Berries help with brain health and inflammation. Citrus fruits load you up with vitamin C and help your body actually absorb iron from plant foods. Bananas give you potassium and quick energy, which is why they show up in basically every pre-workout meal on earth. Apples and pears are loaded with soluble fiber that feeds your gut bacteria. There is genuinely very little to complain about with whole fruit. The thing people get wrong is fruit juice. The moment you juice a fruit, you remove the fiber, the pulp, and most of the chewing-related satiety cues that made fruit feel like a real meal in the first place. What you are left with is sugar water with a small dose of vitamins floating in it. A glass of orange juice can easily contain the sugar of 3 or 4 oranges and almost none of the volume, none of the fiber, and none of the fullness. Your liver gets hit with a fast wave of fructose, your blood sugar spikes. You drink it in 20 seconds and feel hungry again half an hour later. And the marketing on these bottles is incredible. Made with real fruit, 100% natural, packed with vitamin C, all of that can technically be true while the drink is still behaving in your body more like a soda than like a piece of fruit. Smoothies are a slightly better case because they keep some of the fiber but only if the fruit is blended whole and not strained. A green juice from a juice bar with apple, pineapple and orange in it is closer to dessert than to a health drink. Eat the fruit, drink the water. The two were never meant to be combined into one fast-absorbing sugary liquid. Vegetables. Vegetables are the closest thing to a free pass that exists in nutrition. High volume, low calories, packed with fiber, packed with vitamins and minerals, packed with antioxidants and plant compounds that influence everything from blood pressure to gut health to inflammation. Leafy greens like spinach, kale, and arugula give you folate, vitamin K, magnesium, and a stack of antioxidants for almost no calories. Cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, and cabbage contain sulforaphane and other compounds linked to reduced cancer risk and better detoxification through the liver. Root vegetables like carrots, beets, and sweet potatoes carry more carbohydrate but also more steady energy and slow-releasing fiber. Allium vegetables like onions, garlic, and leeks have antibacterial and cardiovascular benefits that have been studied for decades. The fiber in vegetables does most of the heavy lifting. It feeds your gut bacteria, regulates your blood sugar response to other foods you eat alongside it, keeps your bowel movements normal, and lowers your overall calorie density so you can eat a genuinely large meal without overshooting your needs. That is why people who eat a lot of vegetables tend to stay leaner without much effort. The volume fills them up before the calorie count catches them. The downsides are minimal. Some people get bloated when they suddenly jump from eating almost no vegetables to eating a pile of broccoli and beans in one meal. But that is an adaptation issue, not a vegetable problem. Your gut bacteria need a few weeks to catch up. People with specific conditions like IBS sometimes struggle with high FODMAP vegetables like garlic and onions. But for the general population, the more vegetables you eat, the better basically every health marker gets. Grains. Grains are where the conversation gets messier because the word grain covers everything from a bowl of steel-cut oats to a slice of white sandwich bread. And those two foods do completely different things to your body. Whole grains, the ones where the bran, germ, and endosperm are all still intact, give you slow digesting carbohydrates, fiber, B vitamins, magnesium, iron, and a steady release of energy. Oats, quinoa, brown rice, buckwheat, barley, whole wheat, farro. These foods stabilize your blood sugar, keep you full, support gut health through their fiber, and have been consistently linked to lower rates of heart disease and type 2 diabetes in long-term studies. They are not exciting, they are not magical, but they are useful, and they have always been useful. Refined grains are the problem. The moment you strip the bran and germ off a grain, you have removed most of the fiber, most of the vitamins, and most of the minerals. You are left with the starchy middle, which behaves in your body almost exactly like sugar. White bread, white rice, most pasta, most breakfast cereals, crackers, pastries, anything made with refined flour. Your blood sugar spikes faster, your insulin response is bigger, your satiety is much lower, and you end up eating more total food because the refined version did not signal fullness the way the whole version would have. That is the actual mechanism behind why so many people eating high-grain diets struggle with weight. It is not the grains themselves. It is the version of the grains. A bowl of oatmeal and a bowl of frosted cereal are technically both grain-based breakfasts, and they do not even play in the same league when it comes to what happens inside your body for the next 4 hours. Dairy. Dairy is one of those food groups that some people thrive on and some people quietly suffer through without realizing it. For the people who tolerate it well, dairy is a genuinely useful food. It is one of the best sources of calcium on earth. It contains high-quality complete protein, it has vitamin D when fortified, it carries phosphorus, potassium, and B12, and the fat in full-fat dairy actually helps you absorb the fat-soluble vitamins inside it. Greek yogurt and kefir give you live probiotic bacteria that support your gut. Cheese gives you concentrated protein and fat that keeps you full for hours. Milk has been a staple for almost every dairy-producing culture for thousands of years, for a reason. The problem is that a significant portion of the world's adult population does not produce enough lactase, the enzyme that breaks down the sugar in milk, which means dairy gives them bloating, gas, cramping, and bathroom problems they have learned to live with for years, without ever connecting the dots. Lactose intolerance is wildly underdiagnosed because people just assume their stomach is always going to feel a little weird after cereal. The other issue is that a lot of dairy products on shelves are basically dessert-wearing health branding. Flavored yogurts often contain more sugar per serving than ice cream. Milk-based coffee drinks at chains can hit 50 to 70 grams of sugar in one cup. Cream cheese spreads, dessert puddings, sweetened milks, all of it gets sold under the dairy halo, while doing none of the things plain dairy does for you. Plain Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, kefir, and unsweetened milk are useful foods. The flavored, sweetened, dessert-style dairy is a different category entirely, and your body knows the difference. And while you're thinking about all this, the truth is that most people who want to get in shape are not failing because they don't know what's good for them. They're failing because the food they're eating is boring and they cannot stick to it. That is the entire reason Summer Shred exists. It is a 6-week personalized program built specifically for you to get in the best shape of your life for summer. And it comes with a free copy of the Bland is Banned cookbook, which is 102 high-protein recipes that actually taste like real food. Burgers, wraps, pizzas, fries, desserts, normal food, just built so it gets you leaner without making you miserable. Both are half price right now, while the launch sale is still on. First link in the description. Meat. Meat is one of the most nutrient-dense foods you can put in your body, and also one of the most misunderstood. A serving of beef, pork, lamb, or poultry gives you a complete protein with all 9 essential amino acids, highly absorbable iron in the heme form, zinc, B12, B6, selenium, and creatine. The protein in meat is what your body uses to repair muscle, maintain hair and skin and nails, build enzymes and hormones, and support your immune system. There is no plant food that matches the bioavailability of the nutrients in meat. That is just biochemistry. Iron from beef gets absorbed at around 15 to 35%, while iron from spinach gets absorbed at around 2 to 20%, depending on what you eat it with. B12 essentially does not exist in plant foods in any meaningful amount. This is why people who go fully plant-based without careful supplementation often run into deficiencies after a year or two. The nuance is around processing. Unprocessed meat, meaning a chicken breast, a piece of steak, a pork chop, a lamb shoulder, cooked at home, is a fundamentally different food from processed meat like bacon, sausages, hot dogs, deli ham, salami, and most fast food meat. Processed meats are preserved with nitrates, nitrites, and large amounts of sodium. And the long-term studies linking meat to cancer and heart disease are mostly looking at processed meat specifically, not at a grilled steak. Cooking method matters too. Charring meat to a black crust at very high temperatures creates compounds that are not great for you in large repeated doses. That does not mean a barbecue is going to kill you. It means heavily processed meat eaten constantly is not the same as a piece of unprocessed meat eaten with vegetables a few times a week. The two get lumped together in headlines, and the two are not the same food. Fish and seafood. Fish and seafood are probably the most underrated food group on this entire list. Fatty fish, like salmon, mackerel, sardines, herring, and anchovies, are one of the only real food sources of long-chain omega-3 fatty acids, specifically EPA and DHA, which your body uses for brain function, eye health, cardiovascular health, and reducing systemic inflammation. The omega-3s in flax seeds and chia seeds are a shorter form that your body has to convert, and the conversion rate is something like 5 to 10% at best. So eating fish twice a week genuinely does something that almost no other food does. Lean fish like cod, haddock, tilapia, and white sea bass give you high-quality protein with very few calories, which makes them excellent for fat loss without losing muscle. Shellfish like oysters, mussels, clams, and scallops are some of the most mineral-dense foods on Earth. Oysters in particular pack absurd amounts of zinc, B12, and selenium into a few small bites. The trade-off is mercury and other contaminants in some species. Large predatory fish that live longer, like swordfish, king mackerel, shark, and some tuna, accumulate more mercury in their tissues over time. Eating these constantly is not ideal, particularly during pregnancy. Smaller fish lower on the food chain, like sardines and anchovies, have very little mercury and are some of the cleanest and most nutritious choices you can make. The other thing worth mentioning is farmed versus wild. The difference matters less than people online make it out to, but farmed salmon does tend to have a different fatty acid profile and sometimes lower omega-3 content depending on what the fish were fed. Either is still useful. Wild is just slightly better when you can get it. Eggs. Eggs are the food that got demonized hardest by the low-fat era and have spent the last 20 years quietly being vindicated by basically every modern study on them. One egg gives you about 6 grams of complete protein, choline for brain and liver health, lutein and zeaxanthin for eye health, selenium, B12, vitamin D, and a small amount of basically every nutrient your body needs. The yolk is where most of those nutrients live, which is why throwing the yolk out and eating only the white is one of the most aggressively pointless habits in the fitness world. You are paying for the nutrients and then putting them in the bin. The cholesterol panic around eggs was based on the assumption that dietary cholesterol raised blood cholesterol in a 1-to-1 way, and that turned out to be largely wrong for most people. Your liver makes most of the cholesterol in your body, and when you eat more cholesterol from food, your liver makes less of it to compensate. There is a small subset of people called hyperresponders whose blood cholesterol does noticeably go up when they eat a lot of eggs. But for the general population, 2 to 3 eggs a day is not the heart attack on a plate it was made out to be in the 90s. Eggs are filling, cheap, easy to cook, and pack more usable nutrition per calorie than almost any other food in the grocery store. Legumes and beans. Legumes and beans cover lentils, chickpeas, black beans, kidney beans, pinto beans, navy beans, soybeans, peas, peanuts, and a few others. As a group, they are one of the cheapest and most nutritionally efficient foods on earth. They give you plant protein, slow digesting carbohydrates, large amounts of fiber, folate, magnesium, iron, and potassium. The fiber in beans does serious work for your gut. It feeds the bacteria that produce short-chain fatty acids, which help maintain the gut lining and keep inflammation down. The combination of protein and fiber also means beans keep you full for hours, which is why diets built around legumes tend to leave people noticeably satisfied, even on lower calorie intakes. The protein in legumes is technically incomplete, meaning most legumes are low in 1 or 2 essential amino acids. This is a non-issue if you are eating any variety of food across the day, because you don't need every amino acid in the same meal. The body manages it just fine. The actual downside is the same one as with cruciferous vegetables. The fermentable fibers can cause bloating and gas if your gut is not used to them. Soaking and cooking beans properly reduces some of the anti-nutrients, like phytic acid, that can interfere with mineral absorption, which is why traditional cuisines that built around beans always involved soaking, sprouting, or long cooking times. Canned beans are fine for convenience as long as you rinse them to drop the sodium content. Nuts and seeds. Nuts and seeds are calorie dense, which scares people, but the calorie density is exactly why they are useful. They give you healthy fats, plant protein, fiber, magnesium, vitamin E, and a stack of minerals in a small physical volume. Almonds give you vitamin E and magnesium. Walnuts have plant-based omega-3Es. Brazil nuts have so much selenium that 2 or 3 of them cover your daily needs. Pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds are loaded with zinc and magnesium. Chia seeds and flax seeds give you fiber and omega-3s. The fats in nuts are mostly monounsaturated and polyunsaturated, which are the ones consistently linked to better cardiovascular health. The mistake people make with nuts is treating them like a free snack. A handful of almonds is around 160 to 200 calories, and it is extremely easy to absent-mindedly eat 4 handfuls while watching TV without registering you just ate 800 calories of almonds. That is not the nut's fault. That is a portion problem. Nut butters have the same issue, and most commercial peanut butters and almond butters add sugar, oils, and salt on top of what was already a calorie-dense food. The cleaner ones list only one ingredient on the back, the nut. The other thing worth flagging is rancidity. Nuts and seeds contain a lot of polyunsaturated fat, which goes off when exposed to heat, light, and air. If your bag of walnuts tastes bitter or sharp, the fats have oxidized and you should not be eating them. Store them in the fridge or freezer if you don't go through them quickly. Oils and fats. Oils and fats are the food group that confuses people the most, because the messaging has flipped back and forth so many times in the last 50 years. Here is the short version. Your body needs fat. Fat is not what makes you fat. Excess calories make you fat. Fat is what your body uses to build cell membranes, produce hormones including testosterone and estrogen, absorb the fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K, and insulate your nerves. Without enough fat in your diet, your hormones get worse, your skin gets worse, your hair gets worse, and your absorption of certain vitamins drops off a cliff. The kind of fat matters. Olive oil, particularly extra virgin, is one of the most studied and most consistently beneficial fats on earth. Monounsaturated, antioxidant-rich, anti-inflammatory, and the foundation of basically every long lifespan dietary pattern that has ever been studied. Avocado oil is similar. Coconut oil is fine in moderation, mostly saturated fat, useful for high heat cooking. Butter and ghee are also fine in normal amounts. Animal fats from quality sources are not the dietary villain they were made out to be in the 1980s. The actual problematic fats are the heavily refined industrial seed oils, like cottonseed oil, soybean oil, corn oil, and most generic vegetable oil, especially when they have been heated repeatedly in deep fryers and reused for days. Those create oxidized compounds that are inflammatory and that your body genuinely does not handle well over time. The other category to be careful with is trans fats, which are partially hydrogenated oils used in margarines, baked goods, and processed snacks. Most countries have banned or restricted them at this point, but they still appear in some products, and they are the one type of fat that pretty much every researcher agrees is bad for you, in any amount.